get into it right today. Number one is I want to say apologies yesterday. I didn't have power. I didn't have any power at all. So therefore, we could not be able to be together. Um, but I hope you took that time also to continue with your habit so that you proceed to build yourself because that is what matters. Apologies for that. There is literally nothing I could do about it. And therefore, I just end to let it go. But I worked, I made sure that today we are here together so that we get to finish what we started. Today's session, we are going to cover significantly a big chunk of what we were supposed to actually cover yesterday, so that now we all get up to speed. We'll be refining our design specifically on uh, the design that we have been able to look at. But then from yesterday's situation, I actually got to think about something else here. That made me make a simple presentation for you guys, and this is also something that messes a lot of people, especially when it comes to habits and learning skills. And it's the downside of good habits. And I have personally been a victim of this one, and I don't want you to fall to it. And it's called rigidity. We are living in a very dynamic environment, and therefore, good habits are really good. They reinforce the identity of who we are and who we want to become, actually. They help us perform very well. But now we need to look at it at a different aspect. There's a way you can approach good habits and then they become a limitation in themselves. They tie you down, they hold you hostage. And that is not the intention of good habits. The intention of good habits is to be able to propel you to better performance. But therefore, but then if you approach good habits with a lot of rigidity, rigidity in terms of number one, there is how your mindset, how you think about it, because this is the most important one. And when we are talking about rigidity is, you remember we said that your habit should always feel satisfying. I mean, you should always look forward to feeling good because of the things that you've been able to do. There are sometimes you can't do that, but it's always a good thing. So when you have the rigidity of expecting that you will always perform at 100, then it means you will always be disappointed. And if you're disappointed today, there's a higher possibility that it's going to affect what you will be doing in the next thing. So this habit, if you're disappointed with this task, there is a higher probability that it's going to affect your next steps, your day, and all of that. So it's important for us to be very dynamic instead of being rigid. Dynamic in how we process information, how we approach our daily task, how we approach project. And in this case, it means also accepting failure, accepting nature, accepting forces that are outside our control to know that they are going to have an influence in some of the things. Like, for example, if yesterday, because my promise was and my commitment was to make sure I show up every day, so I could spend the whole day feeling bad, but there's nothing I could do. I felt bad in the morning, but then again, I was like, so what do I do? You know, you can't do anything about it. It's nature. You found yourself in such a situation, and there are forces that are outside your control. So you can't do anything about it. And therefore, what you do, you just accept and submit. But then you remember the other principle we said, never miss twice. So the moment you do that, you jump back in as much as possible. The other point is also the environment. When it comes also to rigid, to how we approach habits or the downside. So the idea is to put ourselves in environments that do not predispose us to doing the reverse of what we intend to do. So, for example, in that time, it was the environment that got me. So, if I am in this environment, there is literally very little I can be able to do. So, being conscious also of the environments that we will be getting ourselves into, that we are in, it's very important. Because also, I was slow to make decisions. Because if I made a decision earlier on, I could have moved to a place where there is power earlier. So I found myself expecting and waiting that power would be back. My father was telling me, this power, when there is blackout, power there is always power in the morning, and all of those things. And I bought into it, and therefore I was messed. So now let's go back to the other downside of their habits. So we've talked about how we think about them. So if we are thinking in a very fixed approach to our habits, then the good habits can become a limitation. The second thing is the environment. If we also think of environment being ideal and perfect to be able to do it. And let me remind you something. Yes, we did not have the session yesterday, but I proceeded to do my other ones. So I got to sit down without even the guided meditation, got to meditate, got to read my books, got to journal, got to do those other things. In as much as, yes, this one single thing is not happening, then the other should be able to happen. And this is also the other unfortunate part. You find that because you didn't wake up at this exact time that you should be able to wake up, then you assume now the routine is gone. And even if you wake up at let's say today it was a lazy day and you just got to wake up at 8 a.m. You should start your morning. Your routine is when you wake up. Your routine is not tied to the exact time. That is also the other important part. Because there are days that I'm also so dead, beaten down, man. Like I'm so down and I can't be able to wake up at 4 a.m. Therefore, even if I wake up at 8 a.m., 10 a.m., whatever time I wake up, I am going to follow through the same process that I always do. So that's the other part. So habits are the backbone of any pursuit of excellence. And this is also in every area. Top athletes, top performers. Just ask your bosses around. Ask even the people that you admire. They have specific things that they do every day. Some go down to narrow it down to specific time, and I think we've been discussing this so much. And then others go to just make sure that it happens in the day without necessarily timing. As you grow, you get to more management level, you get to higher levels, you find that time can really be an issue for you. So sometimes it's making sure that there is an habit that has to be performed every day and not necessarily fixing it to a time because of the things that you need to do. The other thing is you can be able to perform without thinking. So there are things that you need to perform without thinking. So for example, the basic one that I don't at this point you should not be actually be thinking about is waking up. You should not be thinking about waking up at that very time. You should not be thinking about checking your habits tracker. And actually thinking of that, I would take you to on 13th, because that is when I traveled on that day. On 13th, I didn't get to do my G sessions, the 7 hours, so I did not check it. I only did 4.5. I remember, yes, I did 4.5. Yesterday, I was only able to do 1.0 hours. So I did not check that because my target is 7 hours. So if I don't hit the target, I don't check it. But for you, you can be able to check it so that it keeps you motivated. I didn't get to do my workout. So therefore, I did not also check my workout sessions. So what I'm going to do is, and this is how we are talking about flexibility. I have missed workout for 2 days. So what am I doing to do? I am going to replace that with my rest days. So how I rest on Saturday, like today, and rest on Sunday, I'm not going to rest. So I'll go to the workout today and tomorrow so that I cover up the 2 days. Remember, don't fail twice. Don't make the extension too long, because if I rest today, so I've rested on Thursday, I rest on Friday, and then I continue with my rest days on Saturday and Sunday. When I go back on Monday, it will be so difficult for me to proceed from where I left. So that's the other point of being very flexible with this. Journaling, I didn't do journaling. Yes, yesterday I did, but on this day I didn't get to do it because I left immediately. So I skipped that one. So these are three things that I didn't do. Yesterday as well, it's only the G sessions. I did get to complete my 7 hours. Habit challenge, I didn't join, so I didn't check it. Gym session, I didn't go, so that is also unchecked. And therefore, we are in today. I made my bed, woke up at the right time, meditation done, water is right here with me, my hygiene rare, prepare my coffee, and then joining this. And I've also done reading. So today is just journaling. So gym sessions are not included here because these are my rest days, but now I am making them over. And once I do that, I can go back and check out my session. So repetition, and this is now the other part. At this point, as you proceed, you find that as you repeat these things, as you solidify your routine, as you solidify your sessions, you develop fluency, you develop speed and skill. The more you practice speaking, the more you practice training, the more you practice running, the more you practice design, the more you practice writing, you're developing fluency, speed, and skill. And that's a good thing. You start now performing without thinking. Most of the things become automatic. But now this is the challenge. As the habits become automatic, and today we are talking about the downside of creating good habits. So as things become automatic, as your habits become automatic, like let's talk about, for example, the simple act of waking up and the G sessions. As they become automatic, you become less sensitive to feedback. Let's also talk about even something as simple as public speaking. I mean, sometimes I am becoming less sensitive to feedback. There are days that I offer very terrible sessions and I feel it. But then when the feedback comes, and my captains always give me feedback. We are very big on feedback because that's how we develop each other. Deep down, I can feel that my mind is trying to assume the feedback. I am not sensitive to feedback. What happens is I allow mistakes to slide in. I allow the structure of the sessions to slide in, to just get it. I allow not preparing for the sessions to happen because you think you are good at this one. And this is the biggest hindrance to performance. So you fall into mindless repetition because you prepared for this session last time. You say that I'm not going to prepare for this one. You say that I am good enough. So when you can do it good enough on autopilot mode, you stop thinking about how you to do it better. And this is where now there is complacency. This is where now you don't develop again. This is where you don't grow. I have fallen a victim to this, and that's why I'm talking about today, so that you don't fall a victim to it. I think there was a time where I was very good at some things and at my workplace. And this is what actually happens to most people at the workplace where you're working for or where you aspire to work in the corporate world, in consultancy firms and all of that. So those people by design, and this is how institutions work. So for example, as I am building RoneSub, I am looking at a person who can be able to do this specific task. And once they do it at a very excellent level, then I assign them that and they run with it forever. So the team is very good in structural design, And then I assign him to that, and then he runs it. So anytime I hear about that, I just don't think about it. I give you people. When it comes to technical design, or rather technical issues, I give it to whatever Wesley, and then that's it. And the trap that happens in such a scenario is when you go to the workplace. I have many friends who are currently working at Kenya National Highways Authority, and they have been given a project. And in this project is, for example, let's say it's a maintenance project, and you have monthly reports that you'll be writing. You have IPC, payment certificates. You have monthly report. You have minutes for the whatever, and then you have some reports that you do. And that now becomes a structured thing and an habitual. And remember, habits are not about the things we are doing only. It's also about your work. So the workplace, the industrial system, how it's designed is to have someone who can be able to, do one thing, do it well, get assigned for that, and do it for their own lifetime. Engineers who are in that sector, they get to be writing those reports over and over again. They create templates. What happens is, over time, that task becomes so automatic and becomes easy. The trap in such kind of a setting is you feel like you are so excellent in your task and in your job, and you relax and you sit down and you're like, yo, you have reduced the number of hours that you need to work. You've reduced the amount of energy that you need to expend on your job, and that's it. So you relax. So what happens to most people is that becomes the only skill that they have. They don't advance. They don't grow. You have your templates for IPC. You have your template for your reports. You have template for your monthly whatever. Everything, templates. So you sit down, all letters, contractual letters, you have templates. You have created them. So when you are creating them, you are growing, you are learning, you are becoming very good, you are developing fluency, speed, and skill. But then you get to a point where you have all your templates intact. So this lack of sensitivity to feedback, it leads to a slight decline in performance over time. So if you give them a new task, it means that they will not perform at a very excellent level. They will not have the speed. They will not be able to develop their abilities. And that's a bad place to be. And this is what is trapping many, many graduate engineers. That is why it's difficult for them to even transition into professional engineers. This is why it is difficult. They have a fear. What happens if I lose my job now? Because they don't have skills. This is why it is difficult for them to move. And we were having this conversation with one engineer. Engineers who are working especially in the public sector, it becomes very difficult for them to secure a job outside that niche of theirs. Because over time, they have been programmed to do certain things that are completely obsolete when it comes to the outside world, to the consulting world. And that's why I encourage you guys to learn things like design. You learn design of different things, and we will be getting to that now. How you can be able to use the platform that we have, the systems that we are building now to transition yourself into conquering the field. You conquer a skill, and then that becomes a template that you can be able to transition or to expand and conquer the field. So yes, the first thing, habits are necessary. And we are talking about this in repetiting learning skills. Let's talk about road design. So you become very good in road design. And I don't want you guys to confuse road design with Civil 3D, because Civil 3D can be able to be used for different projects. And Civil 3D is not a skill. Civil 3D is a tool. And this is actually how employers know people. And this is the problem with most also young professionals. When you're asked about your skills, you mention a tool. It tells me you don't even understand what you're talking about. So if I told you, what are you good at? And instead of telling me you are good in road design, you're telling me you are good in Civil 3D, I mean, now it means you don't know even what you're good at. So habits are necessary, but not sufficient for mastery to achieve elite levels of performance. Habits are necessary. So if you're learning, if you're doing the things you're doing now at your workplace, if you're designing the simple things that we are talking about, they are good, they are habits, you are pushing in, but they are not sufficient for mastery. For you to perform at elite level, you need a combination of two things: automatic habits and then deliberate practice. Automatic habits are, for example, how you're waking up every day to work on yourself. How you're waking up every day to learn, how you're coming to our classes, how you're watching one tutorial, the things and the systems that you've built to propel you to the things that you desire. And then the second thing is the deliberate practice. And this one is the most important part. Deliberate practice will come into three aspects. The first one is repetition. And when you're talking about repetition, we are talking about frequency. How often do you practice it? How often? Number two, it's time. How often and for how long? For you to be able to learn a specific skill, you need to be at least working on it on a weekly basis. You can say, I was able to do this for at least 3 hours this week. Next week, 5 hours. The more hours you put in, the better you become. It's very important. Frequency. And frequency is about number of days and number of hours. So how many hours per day? And this is where we fall. Number three is the intensity. How deep do you go? Because now there's the other point of just opening and you're like, yeah, let me open, and then you touch, you touch, you touch, and you're done. And I was looking at myself, I was tracking my performance, for example, in the gym, because that's one area that I've been very slow to grow. And I noticed that I was not doing some things very intensely. Yes, I have been given the workout routines. I am putting in the effort every day, but my intensity is very low. How intense do I put in? How much effort? How much focus? How much intentionality do I put in into this? These are very important aspects. And this is what is going to separate you from the rest. Intentionality, intensity. I see that a lot with a gentleman called Ernest. I don't know whether he is here. I see it. I see it with Innocent as well. But I want you to keep pushing again. I see that and I appreciate it. Intensity is very important. And then lastly, there is tracking. If you're not tracking, you will never know when you're performing. And you will go back to the concept of motion and action. So you will be feeling like you are moving, but you don't track. You don't track the number of hours you expend. You don't track the number of designs you have been able to give out. You don't track the number of days you've been able to give in. Guys, developing to a level of mastery requires those aspects. Repetition. So now you have already done away with habits. It's fine. It's already in the system. It's like reading. It's like public speaking. You already built it into that. You're speaking. But then, how many days are you speaking? How many forums are you looking for to speak in a week? How many places? When you come to this and we say, let's say, you jump out. It's your opportunity. You rack in. That's one more rep. That's one more opportunity. You get it. Then after that, intensity. And this is one thing that I actually said this year. Every session that I get, it is a session for me to manifest my talent, to speak, to deliver, to inspire. Every session. So this means I take every session as deliberate way of improving my ability to speak, deliver, and be impactful to the people that I'm training. Intentionality and intensity. I make sure that I close my mind and I focus on you. That's it. I'm focusing on you, making sure that you understand, making sure that I inspire and touch and impact you every single day. So this means every day I'll be growing. When I'm doing this, I am fully focused on the task. And this is the other part. You could be spending hours, you could be learning skills, but you're not there. Your mind is not there. You're not focused on this task. Deep sessions. You need to go deep. You need to remove distractions. And the moment you accumulate these, and I want you to understand these are things that you need to keep refining, slowly, slowly refining, refining every day, refining, getting better, looking intentionality. And then after that, that's when we approach mastery. So mastery is the process of narrowing your focus to a tiny element of success. Listen to that. Is the process of narrowing your what? Focus to a tiny element of success. So you need first to define success. What element? What would be your element of success? What would define your success in that field? So for example, let's look at this. It's very basic. So we are working on a design project for an access. What would define your success in that area? Speed, skill, speed and skill, and then quality. Those are three things that will define. So when we are talking about skill, is your ability to transform your imagination into the reality of that design. The other bit would be time. How much time are you taking to do it? How much time are you taking to conceptualize and transfer that? Because the faster you do it, the more productive you become, and you will be able to complete more tasks. And then the other one is the quality, the appeal, the specifications. How good have you been able to capture that? Then listen to that. After you focused narrowly on those three elements, so the first one is you're focusing on the quality, the specifications. Am I able to get those things that James talked about? Am I able to get the curvature? Am I able to meet the requirements? Am I able to position it right? Am I able to see how vehicles are going to transition through this? And then after that, you repeat it until you have internalized the skill. And this is where also we miss it. When you are designing projects, we don't take time to internalize and understand. We get a project, and what we do, we open the software and start going. No, you can't do that. As a design engineer, take time to internalize. That's why I talked about you sketching it, visualize it, think about it. Take like 10 minutes to think, to sketch, to see how this is going to look. And then using this new habit as the foundation to advance to the next frontier of your development. So the moment you've become very good at this simple design that we are having here, you can then transition it. Interestingly, you will realize that people who did the simple cross-section design that we did, the typical cross-section, people who did the billboard that we did, the petrol station board, they have been building, they have used that to transition into this other level. And this is the same things that I do with you every day in all our trainings. I give you simple things, see how good you can be able to do with them, and then you transition, you advance to the next frontier. It is precisely, and this is the other point, at the moment when you begin to feel like you have mastered a skill, right when things are starting to feel automatic, and you're becoming comfortable, that you must avoid slipping into the trap of complacency. And this is the consciousness, this is the awareness of yourself and your skill. You remember we talked about the Goldilocks principle or theory or whatever that is. You need to understand, where am I moving? The moment you feel comfortable, the moment you feel like you're getting to master it, that is the right point. You need to add one extra layer of difficult so that you now push yourself to a better level. And when you do that, this is exactly what you'll be doing with your life, with your skill. And this is where you are moving from mastering one habit to mastering a field. So when we talk about one habit, it's, for example, the simple design that we did for the road cross section. So when you did that for the road cross section, you did it and you felt good and you were like, oh yeah, I've mastered this. And anytime I get to have this kind of a task, I will be delivered to the excellence. So that is what was happening in mastering one habit. This is the graph that happened. So you moved steadily, slowly, and then you are good at this point. And then now from this area, you're feeling comfortable. You can be able to move. You can be able to move and deliver. And then you get to a level where you cannot make it any better. You cannot make it any good. It's like you're getting to a plateau. But remember now, for example, it's also about road design. It's about civil 3D. It's about these things that you learn here. So you've become good at it. You have at least gone to this level where you feel comfortable. You feel like any project that comes, I can be able to handle it. You have built a confidence. And then what you do is this habit should be able to unlock the next level of performance. And when you do that, this is now you build an endless cycle. You learn another software. And this is why I love guys who have been able to move from Civil 3D. They are now going into Revit. They are mastering structural design. After that, they will be moving and moving and moving. We want to create a path for you to master and conquer the engineering field. We started with one habit, and I want you to see how, okay, I'm not taking pride in this, but I mapped out your whole journey. And I mapped this using my own journey. It's called a user story. You can only start with one. You build authority. You become so good. You become confident in that area that you can be able to transfer it into the other area. So my question to you today, what is one area that you're very good at the moment? Are you falling into a level of complacency at your workplace? What are the things that you've been assigned? If you are a student, which units do you feel you're so good at that you have fallen into a point of complacency? I think in high school, I was so good in mathematics, sciences, and all of those things that I had forsaken history. And then it was a point when my principal, he was a very good guy. You know, when you're good in school, all teachers become your friend. And he told me, now, James, think about this. Imagine you're having very good transcripts, results. You're having all these good grades in these other subjects, and then you have a D in history, or you have a C in history. How would that look like for you? So I want you also to think about this. And this is the world and the reality we are in. So you are so good in civil 3D. You're so good in road design. But then, how would this look like for you if you're not good in any other area? Or if you scored very poorly? You need to be versatile. We are in a world where it requires versatile people. The other question is, which one skill are you good in that you can be able to help and make it a launch pad to unlock the next levels of performance? Which area are you good at very well? Can you go down and remember how you mastered it? How can you be able to use that as a launch pad to propel you to unlock better levels of performance? The moment you think about skill mastery in this way, it becomes an endless cycle of learning, mastering, and progressing. And within no time, let's say a year or two, you will have mastered almost everything in engineering. You will become the ultimate engineer. You may not necessarily be able to practice in every field, but you will have the knowledge and the expertise. Remember, the goal is not to get a job. The goal is not to be employed. The goal is to build and become the ultimate engineer. I am very confident that eventually we'll become managers. I'm very confident we will become leaders of the industry. I want you to imagine a scenario where you are leading a big consultancy firm or a big government firm, and it will be having many departments. This background that you're building now to learn different areas and different things, how bad would it look like for you when you don't have an idea of everything? So imagine, for example, you are even the DG uh, for the National Highways Authority of your area. And in this one, you have people who are developing offices for your farm. Or you have a consultancy firm and you have won a contract for World Bank or whatever. And they have civil works, structural works, and all of that. I know you will not be the only one who is doing everything, but you will be managing them. Imagine the gap that would be there, especially if you don't have an idea of what goes down, even the foundation, the basic knowledge. People will take advantage of you. While the profession and careers and everything is a game, you sleep on the game, you get outdone. So if you invest now, using this one habit and skill that you've mastered here, and then use it to grow and master other field, you'll have better chances. You'll have a better future. And I will love to see a better future for you. I would love and I would be very happy. I don't know you. I may not meet you, but wherever you are, I will be very happy knowing that you used this one area to be a launch pad. These very basic skills and habits that you are building now to be your launch pad to prosper, to be better and better and better and better. And that said, we can be able to jump in and just master one area today that we are going to use now to transition even to other areas. And it's my pleasure to say that I am super impressed by the young engineers who are doing a fantastic job. It makes me proud to see you guys put in the effort. It makes me proud to see you guys, uh, yeah, step up. And I want to start with this gentleman, Ernest. I think I mentioned him earlier on in the program, and I am very impressed. I'm impressed. I'm impressed that he is making steps every day, and this is actually how mastery looks like. It's easy. I know most of you could be having other limitations. You could be having some challenges here and there. And it's understandable. It's understandable. But mastery looks like this. Mastery. He was in the boot camp for Deje, and he was also very outstanding there. And I like this. I like people who are outstanding in the small things. People who are outstanding in the small things will always become outstanding in the bigger things. And this should be your focus, my beautiful people. This should be your focus. This should be your bigger goal, to be outstanding in the small things so that you can use them to be launching pad to develop you in other areas. I will get into the access road that we have here. I remember last time we talked about the curvature of how this section looks like. So you can see now, naturally, if you look at this curvature, you can tell that a vehicle will be able to, let me see whether my brightness is right, because I look like my screen is dull. Anyway, I don't know why. Yeah, I was talking about the curvature of this section. It should be very smooth enough to allow vehicles. And I remember we did a test with this one using vehicle tracking, and the vehicles were able to navigate this section very well. Now, the other bit that I wanted us to talk about is this section now, how you separate these two sections to control this section. I don't think whether this is very sufficient. Looks something funny, but yeah. So let's talk about now this other section, the central island, according to the specifications that we mostly have. So if you look, you think of it in the context of so let's say we are building just a fuel filling station here, or what people call a petrol station. Mostly you find that the billboard that we, or the price board that we designed earlier on, is supposed to be placed here. Secondly, we'll be having a drainage system here. We'll also be having the walkway for pedestrians around this area, and we'll also be having a drainage system here, and also we'll be having a green area. I think that is what the gentleman tried to capture with this one. Most importantly, motorists are very notorious. There is also a possibility of them making a U-turn here. I know in such a scenario where we are in a dual carriageway, there's no possibility of them making a U-turn. But also suppose you are just doing it in a one-way carriageway, you will be able to find that motorists are able to make a U-turn, or they intend to make a U-turn here. And it is one of the considerations, or one of the things that would make whoever is approving your design not to approve it. Because now they will be like, what happens if people make a U-turn here? The other point is the safety of the non-motorized traffic. And the first thing that let me start with that. The first thing that we need to think about is the walkways here. The walkways should be 1.5 meters. That is the specifications and recommendations that we have from the road design manual and also international organizations. So for this gentleman, I can see he gave it, I don't know, 2 meters or what this is. But let me just do it. Let me build it up on this. So we have already gotten the edge. This is the edge of the deceleration lane, or the acceleration lane in this case. So what we do is we are going to do an offset. And the first thing is a 0.3 for the capstone. Remember, you need to protect your road users in this case. And therefore, we are doing a 0.3 for the capstone up to this area. I'm going to delete these lines, the yellow ones. I don't know what they represented, but whatever they are, we are going to find out later on, so that it's easy for you to distinguish. So after we've been able to get the geometry right, so we are going to introduce the capstone to protect to separate the motorized and the non-motorized traffic. You'll find that also there are instances where they can go to the higher, a notch higher, to have what we call bollards around this section to be able to separate the motorized and non-motorized, to enhance the safety of the pedestrians who will be walking around this area. So it's a matter of choice, and also the resources that are available. So if the developer is not willing to have the bollards installed, then they can just have the raised curb on this edge to separate it. Then after that, we need to demarcate a section for the walkway, which is 1.5 meters. And then we got it right there. And then we have it right there. So this is the other point. When it comes to this point, remember, you cannot be able to have the capstone. Most people would terminate it at this edge, but ideally, you should be able to extend it at least 20 meters to 50 meters from the edge of the deceleration lane. So just like this gentleman has done, it should be able to be extended. And let's say, for example, it's being extended up to somewhere like, let me hide these ones. So it's being to be extended to somewhere like, let's say, somewhere like here. Okay. So in this case, it means that it is going to taper back to the road shoulder, because this, we are assuming that the road end a shoulder. So sometimes it's going to taper into this. Remember also, the road could be possibly having a curb that was on the edge here, but if it didn't have any curb, then it means it's going to be terminated at this point. To demonstrate the separation, I can go to the modify and then go to break the polyline at a point, and then I would want to break this polyline at that, and then I would probably break this polyline at that area and probably change the color for this one to something like that, just to demarcate and show that that is where I will be having my my road, the edge of road shoulder at that point. So for example, if also the capstone is not also on this other side, so this means I will be demonstrating that that's the road shoulder proceeding from this point going forward. Therefore, at this point, I can be able to, connect these and make, okay, wherever, I'm just making it uniform at that point. Now, the other point that I want to talk about, after now I get the edge of my walkway, I would like also to have the edge of, I protect it on this other side with another 0.3 for the capstone. Remember, the capstones are like 0.2, but I'm using 0.3. This varies also according to the type of capstone that you're going to install in that area. And then I got it up to this point. So that's the last curb that I need to have on this side. Just because also you'll be able to create, you're going to create a legend for this. So it's good also to separate these items into their various layers. So I'm going to hide the floating section, go to home, and then under home, I go to layers, and then I can be able to create a layer for this one. I'm going to create a new layer. I'm assuming there was none. And then I'm going to call this curb, and it's going to be white. The line type is continuous, yes. But then the line width, I want it to be a little bit thicker. And then I'll do that. And then I'll make it the current layer. And then after that, I can be able to probably have it there and make this one similar, just match properties here so that I can know this is my capstone and this is also my capstone at this point. And this is also the edge of my capstone at that point. So this is good enough up to that point. And then this is also the edge of traveled way or walkway. So I don't know whether I had created another one for walkway, but I'm going to create it right there. And then in the walkway, I want to make it green. And then I'm also going to make it current for this side so that it's easy for me to that's it. And then I'm going to use MA for match properties. Select this as the origin. And then this one is going to represent my edge of the walkway up to that point. So in this case, I'll be done with this section, and therefore you can be able to replicate the same on this other side. This is very important. Now, let's talk about this other section here. You cannot be able to leave it wide open as it is now. Let's say, for example, what's the distance? I can see this is 27 meters. I mean, that is too wide. And we said, for example, we normally have 12 meters. So why 12 meters? Number one, for example, as per the KENHA requirements and as also general rule of practice, you are supposed to have a drainage structure. So ideally, we are going to talk about the drainage system in this case around this area. And after talking about drainage, you can see where the drain was here. This is the initial location of the drain. And therefore, it means this drain is going to be shifted to be able to accommodate the new development. And therefore, it means it's going to shift also the line of the drainage channel and also where we position our culvert. So the culvert is also affects the width of the entry section in the sense that number one, the maximum width or the maximum length of a culvert that we allow is 15 meters. And the 15 meters must be able to have an inspection chamber at the middle. Note that. So if you do the mathematics, you remember that we already have a 1.5 meter here. And then after the 1.5, we are going to have the 0.6. So that is like 1.56. And then we are going to have the head wall and some bit of extension on this side. So we are assuming 1 meter here. So that becomes 1.76. And the same thing is going to happen on this end, just the extension only. So if you make the mathematics, you will notice that having a width, or rather having a width of 12 meters is sufficient for you to accommodate all of these parameters and have that standard length of the culvert. Why do we recommend a standard length of 15 meters? It is easy to clean. It is easy to clean in case of blockages, and when you have the inspection chamber there, it's easy also to remove the debris and all of this, anything that is trapped in between that. So that is the rationale behind recommending a section of those meters. And also we talked about accessibility. So when we are talking about access, you don't want a constrained section. A section that has a wider access also has the aspect of it looks beautiful, it looks amazing and welcoming to other people. People don't feel like they are getting into a corridor. So it is also going to enhance business in that specific area. So how do we go about that? There are many approaches to do that, but since we have already determined the edge of the exit, we can be able to do an offset from this point, and we can be able to do 12, and we are doing 12 to this side. Then after that, we can actually be able to extend it to this point. EX for extend, that is the command for that case, and we can be able to have it like that, like that, like that, and probably, yes. So we can be able to trim this edge, yeah, that's good enough. So at least up to this point, we know this is where we expect an edge. Now, after this point, you will use your skills to be able to modify it. And remember, now this is where your creativity will take over. It's about how you want also to design the beauty garden here. So for example, of course, you don't want to have a very sharp edge there. So I could probably introduce a curve there. Remember also, you don't want to have a very sharp edge at this point. So let me actually do this. Let me separate the arches. I don't know whether I was able to separate, but anyway, I can delete it so that it's easy for us to see. That's how we do it there. These other notch, remember there is always a recommendation of having a one. I remember when we are talking about these chevrons, there's a recommendation of having, if you're designing for roundabouts and other sections, most of them will recommend having a radius of a minimum radius of 0.3. This is these notches that we have at this point. Remember also this area will be covered by a curb. So it's very difficult to have such a termination or edge of a capstone. So you would think of having a circle that is, for example, even 0.5 meters. The minimum is 0.3. So we are going to select this one, and we can say, for example, 0.5. So if we have a radius of 0.5, then we can be able to trim this section that way, and then we are going to trim it in that manner. So you can see this one is not going to be very sharp. If you leave a sharp edge again, you're going also to expose the motorist to the possibility of a tire puncture. You could have done the same thing for this section as well. So you can say you want this area and you want this area. And for example, you can be able to use 1 meter for this section. Those are some of the recommendations that we have when we are designing these chevrons. And therefore, we can be able to trim it in that manner and also trim it in that manner. You can see it's coming out nicely. So we can also get to do the same thing for this other side. So for example, this was 12. Yeah, 12 meters, sorry, on this edge. And then we can extend it to this one. Extend. That's super. All right. So we want to taper it here, and we do a radius of 0.5 for this edge. And then we do the same thing. Sorry. We do the same thing here, but a radius of 1 meter for this edge. So we can trim these edges. So we trim this here, we trim it here, you know, and also, sorry, we can select this and activate the trim command, trim it at that point, trim at this point, and you're done at that area. So in this case, you can see this edge here will be tapering very nicely into this section. Remember also, this is a curb. This is a curved section. So this will be a capstone all the way. I remember this should be removed. Yep. So we have that. I'm going to remove this because I don't know what criteria was used to position it. So that now we can be able to do our thing right there. The other thing that I overlooked, there is always a possibility of having a curb on this edge, because now this will be the edge of the traveled way. You remember that? And therefore, you cannot just taper your you cannot be able to taper your curb section directly into the edge of traveled way. There is always a possibility of setting it so that you have a curb. So we can be able to do an offset of say 0.3 meters. I think I overlooked that, but there is no problem. We can undo these curves and then redo them. So the idea is you think of these sections as you would be constructing them. This one is 0.5. There was actually a 0.6, I remember, for a roundabout. We can use 0.6. I think it's bigger. Then we do the same for this other section. For roundabout, it requires the edge of it's called what? The edge of the last edge tail of a splitter eyelid, we use a 0.6. So we can marry that right here, because this is also an eyelid that we are designing, or a chevron right there. You can see how nicely this is coming out, and then boom. So you can see it has naturally formed itself. Most of the time you don't force it, you just allow it to form naturally into the section. Remember also to do this, we can actually even get to do an inner offset of the sections, you know, sometimes, you know, for beauty purposes, actually. It's not even a lot of other things. You want also to make your design as appealing as possible. Sometimes this could be when you're offsetting the inner section, you can be considering, for example, the garden. If you want to do the beautification, how many meters would you want it into the section? So that is also the other consideration. You can say from the edge of the capstone, I want to start grassing or landscaping, probably 1 meter in, whatever you have. So this one is up to you. There is no specifications that are given, but mostly 1 meter works good for many sections. Therefore, 1 meter would be fine for you here. So the other thing is to make sure that there is uniformity of your design. And in this case, I'm going to use MA. Remember, this was for the, for the capstone, because this one is made up of the cab. These are all capstones within the section, so it's good to have that sense of uniformity that you have in that area. So once that is done, now we are thinking about the drainage system, because we need now to ensure that our water is flowing. It's important that, like, for example, what this gentleman did, he did not get to delete the drainage system here, because the drainage system has only been shifted in this area, and therefore will need to be, oh, what's the time? The drainage system needs to be extended now to continue naturally to flow in this area, in this section, and also as it was flowing in this other area. So for example, this drainage has been shifted. Sometimes it's good to leave these ones to demonstrate the old station, the old section of the drainage system. Other times it's not necessary, because you're going to probably show you can be able to write on over it or do the annotation, which also works perfectly nice. But now we are going to use the edge of the capstone. Remember that there was this edge of the capstone here. Let me make this drainage red, so that it's easy for us also to see it. I can make it probably red. Okay, yes, the drainage is now red. We normally use the edge of the curb here to be able to guide us through our drainage system. For example, the rule of the thumb now, how you move the drainage also depends on the space that you have around this area. And for example, the slope that you anticipate to have. So let's do the mathematics and also the depth. So let's say you anticipate to have a depth, and it's basically the same principle that you guys are aware about when you're designing your drainage system. So this is the bottom area, and therefore you are going to have a height, a specific height here. This is like the depth of the channel, and you're going to have a depth of channel, let's say, of 1 meter or 0.5 meters. And then also you need to be having the thickness. So the thickness here will be 0.5. Okay. The thickness here will be or yes, the width of the ditch. The width of the ditch. Most of the times we work with 0.5 meters. And then having the 0.5 meters, let me again do it for you guys. So this is how the ditch looks like. Remember, now it's the type of ditch that you're going to have. In most instances, having an open channel is fairly good enough. So you need to design for the dimensions of your drainage channel. Sometimes it's not necessarily based on the discharge that you have, but also if you get to have the discharge of your area, you can be able now to design these channels as well. So for example, let's say we are assuming in this case, we are using a depth of a depth of 1 meter and a thickness of 0.5 for this channel. So therefore, you need to know what slope do I have, so that once you get the slope here, you can be able to know the offset that you need from the edge of the capstone here. at the edge of where you have oh my God. Yes. So in this case, if you are to get these dimensions as they are, so this section is how many meters? You have a slope of 1:4, for example, here. So you have a slope of 1 vertical, 4 horizontal. So our vertical here is 1 meter. So therefore, this means we would need to go an horizontal distance of 4 meters. Therefore, basically, you can be able to come to this section and say you want to do an offset of 4 meters. From this point, that's where you're getting it. Okay. So you don't need to offset this really. And also this means on this other side, if you had done it appropriately, that's where the new position of your ditch. Remember, the offset distance that you're going to have here is directly affected by the slope that you anticipate to have for your drain. So the slope, the force slope that you want to design with is going to give you the position of your ditch. So don't go the traditional way of just saying, I want it at an offset of 2, 3. The other issue is you find that these sections sometimes are quite unstable. And I've seen this in most petrol stations here in Kenya. The slope here is too steep. That is from the edge of the traveled way to this other, that it's unsafe for pedestrian. And then, of course, it leads to the section being, failing within a short period of time. But also, again, there is the limitation of distance. So you have to be very considerate when you're making a choice for this section, and then you're going to the site. For this design, we are using an ideal one. Therefore, that's why we have done an offset of 4 meters. And then remember, this one was 0.5. That was the thickness that we intended to use. So if you wanted even to do 1 meter, you can be able to offset it at this point. So naturally, you can see that just slightly ahead of this section, that is where the two are rather intersecting. You can be able to extend these lines, and you can see how it joins directly into the existing ditch. Other times you can be able to force it into getting into this area, also considering on what are the neighboring conditions here. Would it allow for me to, do this extension, this smooth connection? So it's all dependent on the site conditions. So therefore, I'll leave this section for you to determine how it's going to taper back into the existing drain. After that, I'm going to come now to this section. Remember that we had done this area. We are anticipating 15 meters. Sometimes you find that this one should be able to communicate with this other drainage on this other side. This is very important. So once you design for one section, you can be able to say now extend, so that now we see how is this communicating with the drainage system on this other side of the roadway. And you can see, for example, in this area, it is not very linear. And therefore, in this case, it means we could be having a little bit more of a skewed culvert. We are going to have a skewed culvert so that now it can connect. The reason I'm saying that it's if this one goes as a straight line, let's say, for example, this was the offset for the drain on this side, and therefore it means there is there is a disparity, and therefore if you do the 4 meters on this one, it's at this point the 4 meters. So it means that we could be having a skewed culvert that would look like something like, I don't know, it's something like that for this case. So that's it. That's it. So this is how also you determine the angle of skew. The other issue is if you don't determine this angle of skew on site and according to your design, you find that there is a higher chance of siltation and blockage, because now water will be flowing at if you try to have a straight culvert here, a culvert that is at 90 degrees, but now the flow is skewed, you know what happens. So therefore, it's important for you to understand that how do you determine the skew angle for you, and then also instruct it as part of your notes. We will be talking about the engineer's notes that you need to give here. I think from that point, it's just indicating now where you have your culvert. So for example, I can be able to say dimensions. I want a length of how many meters? 15 meters. And then I want a thickness of, that is always 0.9 meters. We normally use 9 mm culvert, and then a cover of 0.150. This is ounching of 150, 150. So that goes to 9.3. So I can just use 1 meter, literally, to have that right there. So I can be able to copy these as my culvert, then come with it in this area, and then position it at this point again. And therefore, I can be able to, do my thing. Oh, I did 10 meters in that case. But anyway, means I need to make it bigger for that area and also for this other section. Remember, it's important you use this one exactly as per the skewed angle that you are anticipating to have in this section. Rotate it nicely, and then you position it perfectly for your design right there. Oh, I've already deleted it. So you can have your design right there. You have your culvert. Remember also, you must not actually, because now this looks like it's not very visible for you, you can be able to make it even bigger or larger. There's no problem with that, because now this is just showing where your culvert is. So you can actually make it even bigger than your drainage system. Remember, it needs to at least have 1 meter from the edge of the culvert here, or 0.5. 1 meter to 0.5 is sufficiently good. And you are assuming this line represents the head wall of your culvert. And also this other one represents the head wall of your culvert. You can be able to ascertain what's the distance from this one. You can see that's 3 meters. So you want it to be somewhere like, let me see. Yes, that's my 1 meter. And also I'll do the same for this other part, uh, so that at least I am not extending the culvert too far. Remember also, the longer the culvert, it's going to affect the cost of your project. So therefore, it's good for you to be also considerate on when you're giving these recommendations to your client. So once that is done, this is also the other issue with the wing walls. So you remember the standard pipe culvert dimensions that I gave you. And I think there was a gentleman who did it very well. This is my other guy. I don't know why you didn't write your name, but this must be Job. So these are the dimensions that also you use when you are putting your culvert. So you can refer to these. Remember, like, for example, this is the length that you need for your skew, for your wing walls that you need. You will need a wing wall. The length of the wing wall is going to be 2.1. So I remember, so the 1 point that I was talking about is wrong. It should be 2.18. So you can be able to work with 2.2 meters from the edge of the wing wall. So you need a distance of 2 meters. Okay. You need this one, 2 meters, so that now it's easy for you to position it. So use the standard culvert that I gave you, so that now you can be able to know how do you position okay, where is it? Yes, how do you position this? You can see now, this one now is not very accurate. So you need to extend it from the edge of the wing wall all the way to where you have your end wall is supposed to be that 2.8. and then the angle is 45 meters. So that is your task. Please get to work up to this point. Include your NMT, that is your walkway, include your capstone, design for this section so that now when we meet, we can be able to look at how you positioned your drainage. Remember, also put some thought into it. It's not about just drawing lines, because now you're designing and this is how it needs to be executed. Be very accurate in your design. Go through the dimensions that we have in the culvert here as recommended in this section. Then we can be able to work with that. So thank you very much for your time. I hope that helps. And sorry for taking a bit too much of your time. I had to just complete that section and make up for what we missed yesterday. I can see most of us and given out some of their works for review. I really appreciate that. I would like to see more of that as you give it out to me to look at it. Samuel, this is a good one. I think you've done a fantastic job starting it over. Yeah, it's good. Let's just quickly check your section. Let me just open vehicle tracking. And then I can be able to just, let's see whether it's loading. US design vehicle, statewide Ashtor 2011. I can use WB40, proceed. I don't want to make it my default. And for example, this is the deceleration. Let's start with the deceleration. We can be able, let me assume that it's already on the road section, and therefore I can be able to position it there. So I'm going to come all the way into your section, and therefore the motorist needs to turn. Let me turn off the snap cursor, and therefore the motorist needs to turn that area. Assuming they want to exit almost immediately, they will come all the way to this side and come to this way. I have lost track. Come to this area. I'm going to rectify, don't worry. I'm the one who is driving carelessly. Anyway. Anyway, I'm the one who is driving carelessly. Don't mind me. Let me freeze some of these points so that we get a clearer screen. All right, great. So let's look at this one. So the vehicle is number one, it's fitting within the provisions that you gave here for the length of your carriageway. But now we are looking at this point. How good is it fitting into? So we said that when you're doing the vehicle tracking, it's important for you to understand the decision point for the motorist. And the decision point is, if you are a driver, you know where you start making the turn. And that is very important to inform also when you're doing your vehicle tracking. Because sometimes if you don't think in the perception of how the motorists are going to make decisions, now you may not be able to get it accurately. But at this point, it's always around this edge. That is where the motorist is going to make the turn. I think this one, I took it a little bit too far. And yes, that's right. This looks great. Yep. So yeah, so engineer, this is perfectly done. This is very well. You can see the motorist doesn't have to drive on the curb. I can actually be able to move it outside just a little bit. And this is a smooth one. And if he wanted to exit, so he would probably make a decision somewhere around this area. And once he make a decision around that area, He could come all the way to that point. Um, and then, yeah, make another decision here. You see, once they get to navigate this area, they'll make the other decision at that point. This one, we can move it just back a little bit and they can be able to exit smoothly from the roadway. And yeah, this is super. This is super engineer. I like it. It's good. You've taken your time and you got it right. And this is amazing. I like it. I like it. I like it. I like it. Thank you. Thank you very much. And therefore, if we wanted, for example, to visualize how the vehicle is going to drive through, we can go to this one and say animate. And in the animation, I don't know whether you guys are able to see. We can be able to play. Let me increase the speed. Uh, I don't know whether you guys are able to see, but I need to get a bigger computer that is visible for all of you guys, so that at least you can be able to see some of the things here. Okay, I have not selected everything, but you can be able to see how the vehicle is moving around. I've not done proper visualization, but you can see how it's moving around the section. So we will do proper visualization in the next session, so I don't waste a lot of your time, guys. So thank you very much. Let's work on that bit, and then we can be able to build on it tomorrow going forward. I think the geometry, you have all been able to understand it because it's a big factor. It's a big, 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 big factor. You can see this radius of 26 is completely different from the same radius of 26 when you don't have a keen look at the geometry of the roadway. So thank you very much, guys. I have been able to to review everyone's work that has been able to send. I'm super happy to see you guys putting in the effort, Samuel, Job, and everyone else who is putting in their work. Thank you very much. I'm looking forward to seeing your work tomorrow. Think through how you position the drainage system, because no matter how good of a geometry you design, how good of a pavement you design, if you don't get your drainage right, then you're messed up. So we will also be looking at reviewing your drainage system tomorrow, positioning of the central highland, how you've made decisions. And then from there, we'll be talking about safety aspects. And then after that, we can move to the next step. Thank you very much to design the U-turns. Thank you very much. It's always a pleasure to have you every morning. You give me a purpose. I feel like I'm doing the right thing, and I hope you feel the same. You can always give me feedback if there's an aspect that you think we can be able to improve on this program. It's always good for you to let me know. I'm always open to feedback so that we can be able to maximize the value that we get from this one. Thank you very much. Wishing you a fantastic time. Go out there and win. We meet here tomorrow, same time, same day. Thank you very much. The recording, I'm going to download it right now because I know my guys are at work. So I'm going to download and upload it for you guys. Thank you very much. Santeni. Have a good day. Nice weekend ahead. Take care of yourselves. Don't go drinking. Don't go drinking. You are young. Don't go drinking. Don't go drinking. We want you to, I want to see you as CEOs and big guys. And I don't think you drinking a lot and partying so hard is helping you towards that. Thank you guys. Have a fantastic time.